Thank you.
Well, you know, this is not the first time that the government's bet on a loser, and presidential candidate Ron Paul says it probably will not be the last. Congressman, good to have you. This is just the type of thing, sir, that you warn about when the government starts picking and choosing the technologies of tomorrow, what it gleans to be the technologies of tomorrow. Rarely is it right, but we're here. What do we do now?
Well, I think the thing that we have to do is stop all this as soon as possible. First, we have all the malinvestment that comes from the lower than market interest rates, which causes our cycle, business cycle. But then you have all this affirmative action spending, the bureaucrats and the politicians directing capital. And they're incapable of knowing. No one individual knows the market. The market dictates by pricing and who does the best and who makes profits. So, no, we should be out of that business totally and completely. So that means you have to give up central economic planning in all areas instead of becoming, you know, the planner and central economic planning and telling which businesses survive. They get off on a tangent, and all of a sudden green technology is the most perfect thing in the world. Well, how do they know? And this,
well, you know,
to me,
that
just
raises
proves
a good.
this.
I'm sorry, sir, but here's their argument, and not that we were lucky to get any administration types to talk to us today on this, but the argument for this is pretty much what you just ended with there, that the Chinese and some of these others have heavily subsidized solar industries of their own, and in order to compete with them in the open global market, we have to subsidize. That if we don't, we'll be at risk of just losing this whole burgeoning industry to foreign competitors. What do you say?
Yeah. Well, if you believe in free trade and the marketplace, let's say solar energy was really worthwhile and could outcompete everybody,
right,
and China wants to give them to us at 1/10 the cost, why should we deny that to the consumers? You know, we allow poor people to buy tennis shoes from China, and they only pay $10 instead of $100, and we don't think that's a tragedy for the poor people. But I don't even believe that solar panels are competitive, and I think they're selling them in this country mainly because of this superficial emphasis on this need, and people feel like I'm doing my patriotic duty to buy all these panels, and they haven't had a fair shake with the market. We should, you know, have enough confidence in the market, allow the profit motive to decide whether this stuff is successful instead of the politicians. This is all special in politics. I think this incident is just proof positive of why the government should stay out of this kind of business totally and completely.
I have you here, Congressman. I had Vice President Cheney here the other day, and your fine name came up, but not in the most flattering of ways. I want you to listen to this. He even says we make a big deal over if and when Iran gets nuclear weapons, that's something for them to settle in that region. You wouldn't support a nominee like that.
There are nominees that I'm not enthusiastic about. They haven't gotten the nomination, not likely to get the nomination.
So you're ruling Ron Paul out?
I'm ruling out the opportunity here today to indicate who I support.
He went on to say, Congressman, he doesn't think you have a chance, paraphrasing here, of becoming the nominee, so it's a moot point, and that your ideas, particularly with sort of pulling up our boots, soldiers' boots more to the point, from around the world, is risky. What do you say?
Well, we'll have to prove him wrong. I mean, I'm quite confident about the foreign policy that I advocate, but we have to prove him wrong by winning some elections. But when he says he'll support all Republicans except some, like myself, which means that he wants to be the dictator and say, I will decide who is a true Republican or not. And I say, he doesn't have that authority. The people have this authority, and because we're gaining our support, I mean, he might just come up short on his desires. So we'll see what happens, and I'm very confident that we're going to continue to surprise a lot of people.
You know, he physically blanched when I passed along your view on Iran, that even if it were to get a nuclear weapons, that's something over which we should not interfere, that leave it to Israel. It's none of our business. He was shocked at that view. What do you say?
Well, you know, I don't want them to have a nuclear weapon. I don't want Pakistan to have them. I don't want India to have them, and I wish we had a lot less of them. I didn't like it when the Soviets had 30,000, and I was drafted into the Cold War, which looked like it was going to become a hot war in the 1960s. So, no, I don't like them. But I also understand it, and I also put it in perspective that, if Iran gets one nuclear weapon, why are they more dangerous to us than the Soviet system was when they had 30,000 and we were able to live with that?
Yeah, but
so
the argument is that Iran
is
is nuttier, and that Ahmadinejad might be very intent on destroying a lot of Iranians for the sake of killing a lot of Americans or what have you.
I think that's a wrong assessment, because I don't think
you don't want to be wrong, though. You don't want to be wrong on that one.
Well, okay, well then we have to bomb everybody. This is what I complain about.
No, I'm just
is the willingness to go
Iran particularly different in that its past and its history suggests it does have aberrant behavior.
How could they have been any worse than Khrushchev telling us he would bury us, and he had the capacity to do it? So I would say what we ought to be more cautious about is this glib acceptance that we can go to war in another country, because if you want to stop them, you have to start a war with Iran. And that, to me, is careless warmongering, very, very dangerous, much more dangerous than another country having a nuclear weapon that's not on the verge of committing suicide. And besides, they wouldn't dare with one weapon, and Israel has 300? I mean, we have to put this in a proper perspective and get back to our common sense.
Congressman, I wanted to get your view on that. It was always good seeing you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Ron Paul.